Everybody, welcome back. We've got a new video for you. New card coming out, Caiera. When you're checking this out, you're going to be making a decision today on whether you should pull for this card or not. So we're going to discuss the card, discuss some potential decks that you could be playing with this card. I do think that this is going to be one of the stronger, better cards this month. I like it a lot, but we do want to look at those decks and then make a final decision. So far, initial impression is a thumbs up, mainly because without armor, there's not been a lot of protection for that Killmonger. What do I mean by that? What does this card do? First, it costs 3 and has 4 power. The 3 energy slot in Marvel Snap, I do think, is one of the more critical junctures of a game. So it's going to be very important about when you can play this card. There's not really an early way to get this out. I mean, you're playing, what, Psylocke on 2? That's pointless. So you're playing this card on 3. Am I missing something? I don't see anything. I mean, there's no way to get it. There's no Zabu. There's no nothing that's getting this out before 3. Having said that, you got priority. The only time Killmonger is going to come out, again, we'll get to in a second, is going to be on turn 3. What does this do? Ongoing, which we'll address in a second. Your 1 and 6 cost cards cannot be destroyed. So this is a selective armor. That's what this card is. So if you're somebody who likes to have a lot of 1s out there, or just a critical 1, or some criticals, or a lot of 6s, this card is going to help protect those. Armor is going to probably fall out of your deck in those situations. Armor, poor girl, I'm going to miss her. She's a good card. This is going to protect against that. Now, it's not going to protect against Goliath necessarily, but that's an unrevealed card. Now, also, Rogue, Enchantress. So this card, I would be ready. If you're not planning on getting this card, I would get your rogues ready. Because if you want to carry Killmonger or maybe Shang-Chi, then you're going to want to be able to steal this from your opponent. I think you're going to see this a lot this week. It's going to be a really strong card. The ongoing aspect, I don't know if you're necessarily looking to Enchantress this per se. It feels a little bit like, and it's a little different, but it somewhat feels like Enchantressing either an armor or like the Ebony Blade to do then something else. So I don't see a lot of people necessarily Enchantressing this, but roguing it does feel pretty good, where you're kind of like, well, now these are mine and I'm going to protect my stuff. So I like the card. We're going to look at decks a little bit differently this time. So I want to look at what people are sort of talking about, what are registered, and we're going to go to our friends over at the Marvel Snap Zone and look at what's in here. So they've got a great database. People are able to create decks in here. It even says who they're by, which is great. There's been a lot of hot topics about this. So this makes it a little bit easier, because normally I'll make my own decks for this week, New Year's, family. I'm streaming, by the way, link in the description below, playing this game, Snap, obviously, that's why you're here. Also been playing a new game, Warframe, a little bit. That's totally different from Snap, but anyone out there who wants to check that out, go ahead and check it out. I'll stream here and there. So first, before we go through these cards, what I'm fully expecting to see the type of cards with Caiera, or the type of decks that Caiera is going to be in, is a lot of 1 zoos. Back in the day, maybe kitties, you know, to protect that kitty pride. And those, I'd say, Lockjaw, Hela, Black Knight type decks that are really leaning it, that's got the Jubilees, anything that's got those, a lot of 6 cost cards, blob decks, all of those type of decks are going to really find Caiera critical. I know for me, the first one that I thought of for my type of decks was a blob deck, which also with Scar coming, I thought, well, if I could make a blob Lockjaw type deck, that could get interesting to maybe pull the, though I don't love blob and Lockjaw, but again, something to cook up there, which we'll do this week and see where we kind of land. So those are the general decks I would personally start with. The first one we've got here from Andre PTT, looks like an Evo Caiera. I can't say that I love this one. I mean, it's protecting Nebula and Misty, and then your She-Hulk and your Hulk. I'm not sure that I'd want to necessarily do that with this deck. I know what they're going for here. There are some cards that protect, or actually, and the Sunspot, missed that. So, you know what? I take that back. There's 5 cards for protection there, and a lot of times in this deck, you would want to carry an armor, and Caiera resolves that issue. The part that I do struggle with a little bit is in these decks, I really like dropping down that Cyclops. So I might look for something to maybe bring in Cyclops earlier. I don't know what I'd necessarily, maybe I'd take out the Thing or Abomination. Something here, because there's a little bit of contradiction there as far as wanting either Caiera to protect stuff and Cyclops to bring things down. I like the concept here. I think I also like a couple different paths, so I know I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth there, but there's definitely something here more than I initially thought. Next one we got here is by Savage Yeti, content creator. This is a Hella Scar deck. Looks like we've got Black Knight, Blade, Lockjaw. Yeah, so this is kind of what I was talking about with some of those other bigger ones. It's I like that it's got Jubilee in here, and I like that it's got Scar in here, because Scar, I do think, is going to be an interesting card, because basically you reduce the cost for more 6s that you've got on board. But the only way to get 6s on board are cards like She-Hulk, Lockjaw, or Jubilee. To get, or even Ghost Rider, who's also in this deck. I might look for a way to potentially fit Zabu in this deck. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot going on here between the Hella, the discards, the Black Knight, the Lockjaw. There's a lot. So I would probably try to take one of those out a little bit, one of those pass out, and maybe swing in a couple other maybe 6-cost cards, or maybe a discard to help the Hella be a little bit stronger. But I like the base foundation that we're talking about here. Thanos Lambie. So this is by Pulse Glazer. So this is one that I don't know if Glazer got this from Lambie or if he saw it somewhere or made it up, but he's got Lambie's name in it. Normally when he does that, that means it's something that he's found from somebody else. So what does he got here? So this is a blob deck. All right, Leech, Blob, Lockjaw, Devil Dino, Thanos. Okay, I'm already liking where this is at. So I like this. Now it's protecting your 6s. So it's leaning into protecting your Blob, your She-Hulk, your Thanos, your Magneto. You got your Lockjaw to potentially funnel those 1-cost stones in through it. You've got Jeff to play around with. You got Shang-Chi to go against your opponent. You've got your Devil Dinosaur in case, more than likely, you're going to have a bunch of cards in hand, so that's still pretty solid. You've got your Wave. Bring out that Blob earlier. This is probably my favorite so far that I've seen. This deck right here, I think, is probably where I would recommend starting with the deck. The Leech part, little torn there, I have to admit, little torn, but with a Lockjaw, maybe getting that out early, not so bad. So I like what I'm seeing here. I highly recommend trying something like that. Dracula Zoo. This is a Glazer deck, it looks like. We've got, this is interesting. Why Dracula Zoo? Okay, so we've got a ton of 1s, which obviously get protected with Caiera. You're jumping those on turns 1 and 2. You get a lot of cards out there. On 3, you're playing either Caiera or more 1s. And then on 4, you're looking at Dracula, Khazar, and You know what, Glazer? If you cook this up, I'm liking it, because the likelihood here is that you're almost always going to discard Infinite. And you've got a lot of 1s on the board that should be protected. And you're filling up a lot of lanes so that Martyr shouldn't be moving. Good use for Martyr? I think so. Good use for Dracula? I think so. Good use for Khazar? I think so. I like this. I think this is solid. I might consider dropping a card like, I was going to say Squirrel Girl. I like Echo in here because of the Miss Marvel meta going on right now. I think if you could get Echo out middle, that helps prevent that. But I was thinking about maybe finding a way to do Onslaught somewhere. And so that way you could maybe on 6, you put Onslaught on a Khazar. Get a couple more points out there on all your 1s. I would be interested in that. I'm not sure which card I'd replace. Squirrel Girl jumped out at me, but then I'd be worried a little bit about Martyr moving around. But maybe you put Martyr in the lane that's not full, and then the other ones are full, so it doesn't move regardless. I'd maybe lean into that versus being stressed about the lanes being full. But then again, if you don't have Squirrel Girl, that's less points from Khazar. So, you know, this is a tough one. Maybe Sunspot, because you're going to really be wanting to play cards every single turn. So maybe Sunspot falls off instead for the Onslaught. I like this deck a lot. This is the second one that I would probably start with. Glazer getting me interested in the decks off the get-go. Glazer's got a number of decks here. All right, so my guy Glazer, look at you. I hope I'm not stealing your video, buddy. I was just literally wanted to come here, so. All right, but either way, we're giving credit to Glazer. Check out his channel. All right, Phoenix Forceful. I'm not going to go through this whole one because I will say that I don't love this. I think that I would look at Phoenix more when Hercules comes about, and so I'm not going to really give this one much time. If I'm wrong about it, good on me or bad on me, or foot and mouth, eat crow, I'll do other things. Don't love this, I'm gonna skip over it. Black Knight Hela, another one by Glazer. So similar to some of the other ones we see. I don't love the Silver Samurai in this. It's got Black Knight, Blade, Lockjaw, Caiera, Lady Sif, Dracula, Ghost Rider, Silver Samurai, Blob, Hela, Infinite, and Death. So I don't like the Silver Samurai. I would rather run the Black Knight, Blade, Lady Sif route. Get something else, like maybe a bigger card in there for the Silver Samurai. Something that my Blob can feed off of, or the Hela can bring down a little bit better. I don't know if it's a Gigano or something along those lines. So I would ditch the Silver Samurai out of this one. The Blob, Hela, Infinite, Death, I think are solid. The Death I might ditch as well for maybe a Magneto instead, because I don't really have a great way to get Death on the board unless I'm pulling it through Lockjaw and or discarding it. Those are the only ways I'm getting that on the board, and I don't necessarily love that. I'd rather have a Magneto or... shoot, not Destroyer, but some other, maybe a She-Hulk even, or a Hulk. You know, put that out there. That's, you know, less or more chance that you might play it some other way. I mean, Hulk's the same thing. Just put Hulk out there, which you could potentially play, right? All right, Teebs Zoo. All right, so I think this is Glazer giving shout a deck to Teebs here. We've got again a lot of ones, very similar to the other one. Okay, yeah, this is just pure Zoo. Pure Zoo, I like it. Goose, I like the Goose edition. So we've got Ant-Man, Hawkeye, Nebula, Echo, Squirrel Girl, Martyr for all our ones. We've got Shauna to give us other ones. Shauna should be a late game play. I would not play it earlier than turn 6, more than likely, just to fill everything up. You've got Dazzler for filling up lanes, which they should all do. This is, I like this. If you, and Goose to limit high cards in a certain location. And then you've got Blue Marvel as well for some potential additional points. I would consider looking for an Onslaught in here, maybe ditching a 1. The one that I would ditch here is maybe Hawkeye. I think I'd maybe get rid of Hawkeye and look at Onslaught instead. Just to potentially, if I'm not loving what I've got, maybe I've got Kazar and Blue Marvel in one spot, and I'm not going to stress. Man, I'd love Cosmo if I could too, to protect those from Enchantress. So I don't know, that might be too much in one lane. That's really risky for an Enchantress play. But I at its surface, I like this. I would question whether I could put the points up to compete with this, but I would like playing it and maybe, you know, changing it up a little bit on ladder. I don't anticipate this doing much on Conquest, but you never know. Double up. We've got Zombies Go Nom Nom here. This is interesting. All right, so okay, double up. So it's got Moon Girl. So we've got Quinjet. We've got Magic to extend the game. And we've got some Enchantress protection, Sentinel. Okay, so this is leaning into doubling up cards. Those cards being cheaper. Leaning into Devil Dinosaur. The only thing I don't like about this right now is Scar. Like, you're literally only getting that reduced by the She-Hulk. Which, okay, that's good. Not bad. It's, you know, a good card you can put out there. And the cheaper cards with Moon Girl, you know, okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe you get the or, you know, if you can double up the She-Hulks. But again, like that's a thin line, and if you can't do that, the Scar's not as exciting. So I like what Zombies is thinking here, but I got to say that I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. I think when it wins, it's going to win great. I might tinker with this a little bit to see if I can find some other ways. We might be leaning too much into the Devil Dino, but there is something I could see here. I also don't know about armor. Like, why do we have armor in this deck? If you got Caiera, why armor? I wouldn't. I think you just ditch armor. Caiera is your back. I mean, you could go for one or the other, but you only got 2 6s and 2 1s here. So I'm not... I mean, yeah, you could have more with a double up, but I don't know. I think it's leaning too much into that. Dracula Zoo. We kind of talked about this one earlier. I'm not going over that again. Planet Evolutionary. Let's see here. So this one... Okay, so this is a little bit different. This is by Diet. This one's got Sunspot, Misty Knight, Quinjet. It's got High Evolutionary. Okay. It's got armor again, though. I don't like armors. I think if you're playing Caiera, ditch armor. Just get rid of armor. I don't see a purpose of it. Caiera, yeah, you might not pull her. Okay, but you might not pull armor either. I'd rather find a way to get other cards in here that might be solid. With High Evo, gosh, I mean, I might just throw in Cyclops for fun instead and just hope. You know, you obviously don't have your A-bomb, but maybe I throw that Cyclops in, or maybe we've got Magic. You know, maybe I put in Infinite and go for that route too. That's probably what I would do. I would ditch armor and put in Infinite here. And then that way I, you know, skip turn 5, play a bunch of stuff on turn 6. And then or skip turn 6 and play a bunch of turn stuff on 7 rather. You know, you could lose the magic, but either way, you've got avenues there, and then your Scar goes down in price quite a bit. So, and your Hulk's pretty solid. So you've got a lot of avenues there for big outputs. So I think this is a great deck. This is the third deck I would try out here, Diet, and I would ditch the armor and put in Infinite. Scar Wave. All right, so let's see here. We're only gonna do a couple more, and then we're gonna bounce from here. This is zombies again, and let's see. So some only one again armor. Why do we have armor in these Caiera decks? I'm not a fan of that. Again, I would find something else. I understand 2 pass is great, but I just no. So this is leaning heavily into the blob. So I would ditch the armor. I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little bit. Maybe just some decently high-powered or tech card. Maybe Shang-Chi. I would maybe think about getting Shang in here instead of the armor. Or maybe, yeah, Shang or Shadow King. You know, stuff that's out there that's powerful and strong. I would maybe go that route. I like everything else in here, though. I like the wave to try to get something early. I like the Infinite. I like the Magneto Scar. All of this is pretty solid. You're going to get some pretty big cards, pretty strong. Okay, there's Call Obsidian, so we're not going to cover that. Let's see if there's anything else that jumps out at us. Okay, hold on a second. Zombies. Man, how many decks do you make in here, zombies? Good lord. Okay, so let's see here. So the ongoing... I think this is definitely a course that you could consider with the Spectrum, Professor X, Khazar, Blue Marvel, Ant-Man, Mobius, Caiera, Armor. Armor, in this case, I'm good with because it's ongoing and you want to get it hit the Spectrum. I like this deck a lot. This is another one that I think this is the 4th or 5th one that I'd say I would give it a whirl. Caiera Ramp. This is a different one. I can't say that I'd necessarily... I mean, there's a lot of 6s, but I don't like the Destroyer in this deck. So I do find it interesting. Maybe... I do like the idea of Caiera with Living Tribunal ramping up a little bit. I think that could get interesting, but Electro and Caiera are contradictory. I'd maybe get rid of Electro and use a Wave and Psylocke as the ramping. I know that Electro is great, but I mean, the Destroyer is great for when that Electro is out there and you could play Destroyer earlier than that, but you know, how soon are you going to be able to get it? So there's a lot of other ones in here. Again, I don't want to go through every single one of these. I highly recommend putting some decks on Marvel Snap Zone. This way you can see who makes them. How good they are. We'll end with a Safety Blade one here because we all know Safety Blade. This is the last one, right? So World War Black Knight. Black Knight, Blade, Lockjaw, Caiera, Lady Sif, Ghost Rider, Blob, Hela, Scar, Magneto, Infinite Death. Okay, this is more along the lines of something that I could have some fun with here. I like this a lot. There's a lot of 6s here. The Death, again, is not a 6. The only way that I would lean in maybe a Hulk here instead, or a She-Hulk. So that way, maybe your Scar comes out, you skip a turn, you're playing that. Because you're never going to play that Death outside of the discard and or the Lockjaw, whereas you could play it if it's a Hulk. I'd rather do that. It's the same power. So let's get rid of Death, maybe drop in Hulk there. But I like this. I'm seeing a lot more Black Knights, and there's only 2 discards here. But if you don't go that route, then you're playing some of your big cards late, and you know your Ghost Rider is going to bring something solid in. And you even with Hela just pulling a couple cards in, it's going to probably be pretty good. So Safety Blade, I think, is going to be another deck that I'm going to want to try out, see if I can win with it. I do videos like that, so please consider hammering down like button, subscribing, all that sort of thing. And we'll see if I can win with some of these decks. Before we get out of here, do you want to pull for Caiera? Can you see her on this tier list? Let's zoom in. Yeah, she's in the save for section. If I expand this out, that's the save for. This is a fantastic spotlight week with Caiera, Haya, Evo, and Nebula. 3 fantastic cards. I would highly recommend doing this. She's going to be a good card. Do it. No regrets. If you're somebody who needs to wait, has low resources, yes, just wait this week, see how it goes. If you're somebody who typically has or thinks about getting most cards, I'd say go ahead and get her. I don't think you'd be too stressed, and I'd use the spotlights to get her. Again, shout out to all the creators out here. Shout out to Marvel Snap Zone. Thank you for that. Again, thank you for making it this far, and until next time, we hope you have a wonderful day.